looks like a torture device. How do you use this thing? Today, I'm gonna be eating Genshin Impact food all day, but with a bit of a caveat. Now, the goal is to actually be able to execute all 3 of the dishes we're making today. And I mentioned 3 because there is going to be one secret dish that you guys have kind of been asking for since the last video. The first one I'm starting with is actually We're starting with Al's. Now his specialty is actually based off of Sab's stew, but then it kind of turns into essentially a pot pie. I don't know how they got there, so we're gonna try to make something like that. I'm starting off with about 1 cup or around 170 grams worth of flour, followed by a pinch of salt, and then I have 4 ounces of cubed butter. I'm gonna pulse this until it is nice and crumbly. That's what you want it to look like, nice and crumbly. This is what I'm going to slowly add in just a bit of water. I only need about 4 tablespoons worth of ice water in here. If it doesn't come together, it needs more water. So once it comes together, this is ready. This is done. Get it off of here. This is a pretty basic dough, but we can't really work with this yet because we don't want the butter to get too soft. So I'm gonna form this into a little puck. Then I'm going to cut this in half because we're gonna have a top and a bottom for this dish. Press them down lightly so this way it's easier to roll out later. Trust me on this one. Throw them into whatever container you want, or you can put them in a bag or wrap them in plastic, but we do need to cool these down for about 30 minutes while we work with everything else. Now with that pie dough resting, I just have to actually make the filling for this, and this is super simple to do. This is when we get super serious, right? Oh, you wanna pick up one of these headbands? They're limited edition on the website where you can also find these recipes. Link is down below, chefpk.com, yeah? Now the filling, again, is akin to a pot pie. I'm actually using the cheapest meat I could find. I found this steak, which is like an Australian Wagyu. So it's not 100% Japanese Wagyu, but it was only $6 because I think it's supposed to go bad relatively soon. There's like no smell. Why would you get rid of this? So now we get to have some Wagyu. Now once I've cubed up the steak, I'm gonna place this into a small bowl, and then I'm going to dredge this with some flour. So this is gonna actually help thicken everything up, so this is pretty necessary. Don't forget your good amount of salt, and of course black pepper. You can also season this with whatever you want. I know in game it says spice, but I'm saving the spice for the other dish we're gonna be making for lunch. Make sure that this steak is totally covered with flour. The other few things we're adding are some potatoes, onions, and carrots, which we just have to chop up. Now we get to cook everything together. I'm gonna be cooking this in a combination of butter and oil. I like the flavor of butter, but I don't want too much butter. Once that butter is almost melted, this is where I'm going to sneak in 1 clove of chopped garlic. After about 30 seconds of the garlic in there, now you put your onions in. Oh, smells so good. Now after the onions have been in there for about 30 to 40 seconds, this is when you add your beef. I'm constantly stirring this because I don't want any of that flour to stick and burn to the bottom. And after about that another minute, this is when I can add in the rest of everything else. Season it with another pinch of salt because potatoes and carrots don't come with salt, as well as some black pepper. And once this is starting to kind of stick to the bottom and you can't really prevent it anymore, you can kind of see some of that stick to the bottom. This is when I'm going to add some beef stock. And yes, this is just some beef stock from Kettle and Fire. This has to come up to where it almost covers all of your filling. So we're gonna turn this down to a simmer, and I'm gonna simmer it on the stove with a lid on it. And while this is simmering, we can finish the pie dough. While the filling is simmering over there, and I actually removed the lid after about 5 or 10 minutes, just so that way it reduces more because we need this to be pretty thick. This is when we're gonna work with our dough. I'm only gonna need 1 right now so we can take the other one and put it back in the fridge. You're just gonna need a little bit of flour, throw that right on top of that dough so nothing sticks. And then we're just going to roll this out. Now I'm gonna try to roll this out until it's around 1/4 inch thick. Wanna make sure it fits right on top. Cool, that'll work. Now, we do have to grease this up. Don't not grease this. Take a little dab of butter and just rub it all into that pan. Once that is nicely greased, we're gonna take the pie shell and place it on the inside. Now what I really wanna do is gently press down into all of the corners of this pan, so this way there isn't any real room for this pie dough to move around. So now that I have this, I'm gonna put this back into the fridge so this way it settles this way. Now the filling is also done, and this actually got really, really thick. That's kind of what you want, because in the picture, it looks like they're able to cut this and remove it almost like a pie. You can't really cut pot pie like that, so we're gonna do our best. That's why I made it pretty thick. But the other thing is that this has to cool down completely because you can't put this hot filling into that pie dough. This has to be completely cold. We'll let this cool down probably for an hour or so, so maybe we'll prep the other dish while we're waiting for this one. Or maybe, you know, we'll do the dishes. It's a full sink. Now the dishes are done. This is totally cold. We can actually assemble this beef pot pie. I have my pan here. I'm just gonna dump all of that right in. Hopefully this is enough. I think that's okay. Now that this is nice and full, we can actually roll out that second half of the pastry. Make sure I sprinkle a little bit of flour on here so nothing sticks too much, and just roll this baby out. Once that is rolled out, take this guy off, place it right on top. Yeah, this is definitely not full enough, but it's okay. Everybody likes extra crust. So I'm just gonna crimp this together to the best of my ability. This is what we call rustic. I'm gonna cut off just a little bit of the excess pastry. And once we have all of our pastry on top of this, we have to poke a couple of holes in it so it doesn't explode, because we don't want it to explode. Now, I know that Al does have a little design. I don't know what the design is. Picture, it's pretty pixelated. So we're going with just the holes. Last thing we'll need is a bit of egg wash on top of this pastry so it doesn't overcook or burn. And it'll give it a really nice color when it's done. Once that's covered with egg wash, I'm gonna throw a little bit of foil on top of it to protect the top. We want that bottom crust to be able to cook before we get too much color on the top crust. So if you don't cover it, you're gonna end up cooking the top while the bottom is still raw. Now this goes into the oven for about 30 minutes with the aluminum on. And while that's working, we can work on lunch. Now I have our pot pie from Al working in the oven. I actually want to get started on lunch, so this way I can have this ready by the time I'm ready to eat it, because it's going to be a weird day for prep. Now Daya's dish looks like a tagine, or I believe it's tagine. There wasn't too much information on this other than what we have here from the wiki, so I'm going to be making a lamb tagine, and this is just some chopped up lamb shoulder. This is about 6 or 7 ounces worth, and then I made my very own spice mix, and this is similar to a ras el hanout, I believe is the way it's pronounced. There's a lot of weird pronunciations, please forgive me. This is salt, cayenne pepper, black pepper, cardamom, cinnamon, ginger, coriander, crushed clove. All that's going in there. Oh, the smells in here are so freaking good. This one doesn't get flour like the other one did. From the same pot that we used earlier, I'm gonna add like 2 to 3 tablespoons worth of olive oil. Yes, olive oil for this one. And I'm gonna heat this up until it is almost smoking, because I wanna get a little bit of a sear on this lamb. I'm gonna drop a piece in to test it. That's good. I got a little bit of a sizzle. I'm gonna sear this until we get a little bit of color on that lamb, but we also have to be aware that we don't wanna burn those spices that are on this either. Now after searing this for just about a minute, minute and a half, this is when I'm gonna add in the rest of my ingredients, which is just 1/2 a chopped onion along with 1 whole chopped carrot. Now once that's mixed up, I have 2 lemons that I had previously juiced. I'm gonna deglaze my pan with that, scrape the bottom of it. And once you have most of the bottom deglazed, I'm gonna take the rest of my beef stock and add it to my dish. I'm gonna add just a touch more water to this because we want it to have a little more liquid to help braise it. Get another pinch of salt in there. And now I'm gonna throw a lid on it, and we're just gonna simmer this for about an hour to an hour and a half. So pay attention to it so the liquid doesn't go down too far, and then we just finish it off with this. We have the tagine working. The pot pie has 15 minutes left on it. I think we can actually prep the third dish of the day. This third dish is actually Chef Liu's potato wrapped shrimp. This looked amazing. I have 1 potato that I'm gonna hopefully peel. Now Chef actually has some amazing skill by being able to peel back this potato, but got this for a wedding gift many, many years ago. I have no shame in using this. This is a spiralizer. How do you work this? It looks like a torture device. How do you use this thing? I've never used this before. I give up. I'm gonna try. Oh, that's so difficult. Okay, it was a little bit better, because then he kind of cuts these into strips. That's not too bad, but do you even need to do it this way? Okay, hear me out, hear me out. We could use our handy dandy mandolin, which every single one of you should have, and do nice thin slices this way. Look at that, just made our lives infinitely easier. Now we can actually cut these potatoes nice and thin. Now, since I'm not using this immediately, it's really, really important we put this in some nice cold water. This will keep it from oxidizing right up until we need to use it. Pop this in the fridge until the pot pie kind of broke because of the foil, but it looks gorgeous. This is ready to go, but now we have to let this rest for at least 10 to 15 minutes before we can dig in for technically breakfast. Now this pot pie has been hanging out for about 15 minutes, ready to cut in. We're gonna dig in. I'm so excited to finally eat this. Ooh, it feels really nice and thick. Let's see. Oh, look at that. That is freaking gorgeous. Right onto this plate. Some of this extra good that was in there. Cheers. Oh my God. It's so incredible. Like, that meat is so incredibly tender. $6 Wagyu. Oh, and the pastry is super flaky. This is fantastic, but I can't eat this all myself. I really use a cup of coffee. So I really want to show you guys what I do throughout the day during these videos. So I'm gonna head over to the bakery and give this to them. I brought lunch.
What is it?
It's a Wagyu pot pie.
Oh my God, what?
And for that Wagyu pot pie, they hooked me up with an iced coffee and my bagel. So I got myself a bagel, and they gave me a cold brew on the house, which was really sweet of them. They were really excited about it. I hope they enjoy it. So if you guys end up seeing this video, like, please eat up. You guys deserve it. Now I'm just gonna eat a bagel in the car and then go to the gym. So good. I know you're probably wondering what's going on with the lamb tagine. I turned it down super low so we can leave it for a couple of hours and just come back and have lunch when we're ready. Now that I'm fully carb loaded with a bit of that pot pie as well as my bagel and coffee, I decided to do some really nice deadlifts today just to get the blood flowing before I headed back home and worked on that lamb tagine. So I just got back from the gym, I checked on our lamb tagine and it is looking really good. It's still not quite ready, so I actually started some rice behind me because that does sound good for dinner later today along with the deep fried shrimp we're gonna be doing. But I'm actually not hungry right now. I'm just not hungry after the gym. So instead, I'm gonna get some work done and then come down and make some dinner. So I went upstairs, started typing these recipes to put them onto the website for you guys, and after a few hours, I was ready to eat dinner. After getting some work done, we can finally have dinner. This is gonna be kind of nice because we're gonna have two different dishes at the same time. The last thing I really have to do is mince up a bunch of this shrimp, just like Chef does in that video. You wanna make sure that this is totally minced because we have to wrap this around each piece of those individual shrimp that we have too. Once I have my shrimp paste, I'm gonna take it all, put it back into my bowl. Then I'm gonna add just a bit of flour to this to help thicken it up. And then we have our final component, which is that minced shrimp. Super simple to do this. I also wanna make sure I throw a little bit of salt onto this shrimp paste as well as onto actual shrimp because I don't think it has a dipping sauce of any kind, so just season it just a little bit. I'm gonna keep my hands a little bit wet here. I'm gonna take one of my pieces of just regular shrimp, no tails on this. I'm gonna crack it just a bit so it's a little more flat. There's usually a vein here. These are actually not cleaned very well, but that's okay. You wanna break that vein and then your shrimp will be kind of more flat, yeah? Then we'll take some of our shrimp paste and we're gonna cover this with that shrimp. It's actually kind of hard to work with. But after rolling it around, we have our shrimp covered shrimp. I'm gonna go through and do as many as I can. I think with the amount of shrimp paste I have, I'll be able to do about 5. Now I have all 5 of my shrimp. Here comes the hard part, is wrapping it with that potato. Because I wasn't really able to get those really long strings that Chef was able to do, I don't know if we're if we're gonna get any of this on here. This is not gonna work. I can already tell. So we're gonna pivot. Take a bunch of my potato and see if this method works. I'm gonna chop this stuff up and see if we can wrap and or coat the shrimp with potato. Now we have to actually change the order of operations because I don't think we can really get, we can get a little bit of potato on here. I was like, it might not stick. So instead I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna press this potato into the shrimp. I mean, this might still be really nice. I mean, that'll look really pretty when it's done. I'll drop it into our flour. Let's see how this comes out. I'm gonna do all 5 of these and I have my fryer oil going, so we're just gonna bang these out. I have just a little bit of oil in my pot about halfway up. So now we're just going to say, good luck, little guy. Oh yes. Come on, hold. See what this looks like. It sounds like it's gonna explode at some point. In the meantime, get yourself a plate with some paper towels on it, so this way you can drain the shrimp right away. I'm gonna pop a third one in there. This way I'm not overwhelming the oil all at one time, because if you do, you have a chance of the oil cooling down too quickly. Oh baby, look at that though. Look at the color on that bad boy. Granted, they're not as beautiful as the ones that Chef did with the spiralized potato, but they are admittedly pretty nice. Like, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I really like the way those came out. I can't wait to dig into those, seriously. Last thing is to finish the tagine. Look at how beautiful and rich this looks. I got super hungry after waiting, so I'm ready to dig into this, but you have to do that one thing. Remember, we had one thing to add. Lemon zest. From those 2 lemons we juiced, this is gonna make it super bright. Lamb and lemon is so good together. I have a nice half plate of rice. I think we're just gonna do that. We're just gonna do all of it. Put these dudes onto this. And there, my friends, is dinner. Lamb tagine for Dea. Then we have Chef Liu's deep fried shrimp, a little bit of modified. I'm really excited for this, but I think I'm more excited for this. So I'm gonna try this first. Cheers. That's awesome, but I also see how different it would be if it were wrapped with that potato properly. Now for this lamb. I'm gonna try this on its own without rice. Cheers. This is it. This is delicious. You should absolutely try these recipes. I'll leave them in the link down below on the website, chefpk.com, where you can also pre-order my book, Any Bites. My name is Chef PK, and remember, keep playing with your food.